you would pass your cards down towards the bottom so we don't have to run up the stairs, it would really be appreciated. And our gatherers will give you your question answers. No, they'll submit your questions anyway. Thanks.
Yeah, right, nobody's called.
Do you have extra paper, index cards?
No, but the people out there have a ton of them.
Arlie, when they made a map once of going northwest Astoria without using any streets, just paths and stairways.
Oh, really?
And I've been meaning to walk that. I haven't yet, but Jennifer and I, Jennifer Goodberg and I walk every week. So once the weather's nice, we're going to try and do that.
Oh, that's nice. How fun. She should put that on video.
Oh, she did it years ago. Oh, maybe she did. Something.
Yeah.
I've had it for a long time.
I wonder where Chris is. There he is.
Oh, this is an issue we never.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's good to have lots of heads.
Exactly. These 3 billion heads and we didn't come up
I
with
know.
that. It's from the south and Swedish. I did still.
I think people coming in, because those are our pencil and card ender outers.
I think people are going to come in late to which ones they want to hear.
Maybe so. Also, some people have to go home and feed family and then come. I mean, getting somewhere after work is sometimes tricky. So. Okay. It's 7. We should go. We don't have a lot of time today. You ready to go? Over here. Oh. Have you ever had the Coke House in Phillips? What is your takeaway from that?
Okay.
Okay.
I know there is. They keep fighting
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. So you're doing the welcome. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Candidates Forum. We're so glad to be here tonight in preparation for the May 7th Oregon primary election. My name is Liz Bartel. I'm the current president of Astoria AAUW, the American Association of University Women. Our branch has sponsored many candidates forums over the years. We're grateful to be able to do so again this evening in person. This forum is also being live streamed at kmun.org/election. Tonight's event is a collaboration with Clatsop Community College, the Astorian, and KMUN Coast Community Radio. And I want to say a big thank you to our partners for their generous donation of staff time and resources. I also want to say thank you to our candidates for taking the time to be here tonight. Just a word about AAUW. We're a national, state, and local organization. Our mission is to advance gender equity for women and girls through advocacy, research, and education. Our vision is equity for all. Our values include nonpartisanship and integrity. If you'd like to join us, come see us after the forum or find a member forum on our website at AAUW Astoria Branch. Questions for our candidates tonight will come from the audience or were developed by the AAUW Forum Committee to assure a broad range and adequate number of questions. No one else has had access to the questions. If you've noted a question on a card, remember to include the office for which it's intended. And please, everybody, help us by passing the cards downward to our card collectors. Would you put your, there, though our card collectors are right there. So, Chris Breitmeyer, president of Clatsop Community College, is the moderator for this evening. Chris will provide an explanation of how our process will occur, and he will introduce our candidates. So I'll turn the microphone over to him now. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this important event. I've had the honor to do this a few times, and each time I'm really excited by the process and hearing what candidates have to say, and really encouraged by the participation of our community in the democratic process. Before we get started, I'd like to thank KMUN for recording and live streaming this forum, and all the folks that have helped put this together. It's been a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. For the candidates, as you come up, if I forget to name you, and clearly I will, when I ask you a question, please remember to state your name so that the folks listening at home know who is speaking. When you come up, each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and make a statement, and then I will begin asking the questions. And to each candidate will have a 1-minute time limit to respond. If you agree with what's been said before, it's fine to say you agree. You don't need to take the whole minute if you don't want to. Lauren is our timekeeper, and she'll raise a yellow card at 30 seconds and a red flag for you to stop. And if the red flag comes up, I might have to walk over. And I've been working out for this event. All right, that's not on my script, and I'm going to be in trouble from Sarah. I apologize, Sarah. At the end of the questions, you will have a chance. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to conclude your candidacy or further explain a position that you had. We'll have 3 seatings of candidates. The first group of candidates are for U.S. Representative. The next group 2 will be state candidates, and group 3 will be our county candidates. So I would ask that the U.S. Representative group 1 candidates, if you could please come forward. I think there's signs where you're supposed to sit, so.
I think I'm in the right place.
All right, good. Okay, great. So we should have Christopher Mann, Armidia Murray, Christian Robertson, and Scott Phillips. It looks like Christian isn't here, so we'll just go with the folks that we have. So Armidia, why don't you go ahead and go first and introduce yourself? And you have 2 minutes.
My name is Armidia Army Murray. I was born in Las Villas, Caribe, Cuba. I'm one of 9 children. I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. And I jumped into this race to help all the children out there whose parents are being left behind on having a decision on what their children are learning, what medical procedures or medicine their children are getting, and that is not what America is all about. I fear that America is heading down a path that it's not what it was meant to be. And I'm here to fight for America and our rights and freedoms that our founding fathers fought and died for.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Christopher Mann. I am a native Oregonian. I just completed a 21-year career in the United States Army. I used to spend many cold, rainy nights here at Camp Rylea. And after finishing my career in the military, I decided there was more to be done. I couldn't just walk away from serving the people that I've protected for so many years. And with so much going on in politics, I said, we need somebody in here who's not going to do the political thing. I don't care what party brings some legislation to the table. If it's not right for the people, I'm not going to vote for it. And I'll tell them why. I'm not for sale. I have ethics and morals I learned in the military, and I will continue with those as I serve you in the future. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
No, I don't think that.
Hi, can you hear me now? Thank you, everyone. My name is Scott Phillips. I'm running for CD1 as a Democrat. And I'm running, people usually ask me why I'm running and then what makes me different from the typical candidates. I'm running because I think our problems are getting bigger and worse, not better and smaller. I'm running because I feel like we're running out of time on some of our biggest challenges, whether it's climate change or holding the line on global peace. That's pretty tenuous these days. I think what makes me a little different from most is I'm coming with two very different backgrounds. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer and Peace Corps staffer. I was a volunteer in Africa and then a staffer in DC running programs in Asia. That was all about grassroots development and helping communities with poverty and doing ag extension, et cetera. I called that my master's in reality. It really kind of keeps me down to earth. I always say I'm someone who can jump in the mud and help you and teach you how to plant rice in a swamp. The second career was all IT consulting. I had just finished a 22-year career in IT consulting, working for a big company, helping other big companies get better and improve and modernize. And what that has taught me a lot is understanding what kind of organizations are, when they're working and when they're not working, understanding some of the hype versus the reality with technology and how to help organizations modernize. I can tell you my impression is our public entities are pretty far behind that curve, and I think I have a lot of very practical skills in terms of looking at sort of some of those kind of challenges. So I guess to kind of conclude, I'm getting the 30-second sign there. I think I'm a pragmatic problem solver with a very wide background and very different sets of experiences, and I think you get people who have one or the other, but very rarely both, and that's me.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for those introductions. We'll start with questions, and we'll start with you first, Christopher, if that's okay. Each one of the candidates will have a chance to answer this question. What is your opinion regarding the federal minimum wage, which is currently at $7.25? Oh,
I'm here.
Yeah, he's there. No, Christopher, the other one's Christian.
Hello, sir. How are you? The federal minimum wage can't be across the board. It's just like demographics in a city versus a rural area. If you go down the cost of living, somewhere is much less expensive than somewhere where it's much higher. I think the states should be in control of that. I think it should be fair. Unfortunately, we've never seen them grow at the rate of inflation, but every city and state has their own inflation rate as well. And so I think that that's not a federal issue as it is a local issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Scott, can you go ahead and respond to that? What is your opinion regarding the federal minimum wage, which is currently $7.25?
Yeah, I think I have a very similar opinion in the sense that I think it varies. It's going to vary between cities and rural areas, and you need a lot of flexibility. I think generally it's fallen pretty far behind, and it needs to increase. I also think that our economy's become pretty unshackled recently. Cost of living is going up pretty fast. And some of the traditional numbers that people are thinking about for a living wage, that picture's changing pretty dramatically and pretty fast. And so we're going to have to be, I think, flexible and adaptable. And I don't know what the number is. I think $7.25 is too low. I think it needs to be higher in most cases, in most places. But I think we're going to have to kind of figure it out based on where we land after the economy settles down.
Okay, thank you. Army?
Every community is different. Every need is different. Minimum wage is a supply and demand issue also. If you have small businesses or local businesses, they don't have the income as large corporations do. So if we raise the minimum wage too much, we're going to lose our local and small businesses. And that makes 54% of our economy. You know, are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot? No. I think we need to be very careful on what the minimum wage standards should be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Scott, we'll go ahead and start with you on this question. What is your position regarding campaign funding reform?
On campaign funding reform, I think we need to take a look in getting out, big donor money out, make it very transparent and clear who's putting the money in. I'm actually probably the least funded campaign of anyone here, and so I have a pretty jaded opinion about that. But I do think we need to look at transparency. Big money does have an impact. It'll be interesting to see how some of the campaigns that are getting a lot of outside funding actually do versus what people are expecting. I don't think it really fools anybody. So I think a lot of work to be done in that, and transparency is, I think, much better.
Okay, thank you. Army, can you respond to that?
Transparency is good, but regulation does not work. Who's going to do the regulating? A lot of the government can't be trusted. But we do need some form of observation, people who will watch and keep tabs of who's donating, because we have organizations that do tend to lean towards one side and have big pockets based on employees. So I think we have to be careful on regulation, but something definitely needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. And Christopher.
When I look at this, how many families could we feed? How many people could we get off the street with the amount of money that's being spent by some of these people that draw in millions and millions of dollars? It's ridiculous. I think you could do it by providing platforms like these, maybe creating so many signs they can put out on the street, because that money comes from somewhere. And the way they get around a lot of the numbers that they're told they can't spend over is they go out and do speaking engagements, and they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to speak in front of people, and that needs to stop. So I want to see this numbers drop significantly, because I don't want to owe anybody anything or owe them any favors by their contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Army, the next question will start with you. The cost of food is at an all-time high. Should the federal government continue funding the SNAP food stamp program, or what are your feelings on that program?
We have a lot of government wasteful spending, and we also have a lot of people who are here illegally who are getting some of that SNAP food funding. I think we need to do an audit to make sure that the money is going where it's supposed to Americans who are needy, to give them a hand up until they can get on their feet. I don't think it's something that we should let Americans rely on continually so that they don't get motivated to go out and work. I think a lot of food SNAP makes people lazy.
Okay, thank you. Christopher.
Yes, I think that there's some things that need to be done with these SNAP programs. Why is somebody who's getting, say, $600 a month to feed their family spending 10 or 20% of that on soda? Soda is not nutritional. We need to treat that more like we do with new mothers who get funding to help out with the right products for their babies. So we need to stop the spending on things that are not nutritional for these kids so they get a more rounded meal. I'll leave it at that.
And then Scott.
Yeah, thank you. I think the question was, should we continue funding or?
Yeah, just your thoughts on the SNAP program and continue funding it, funding for it.
So, just personal perspective, I'm the product of a single parent welfare family. I grew up on food stamps. I don't think it's anything anyone wants to be in that situation, but I think it changes lives for the better. It's better than going hungry. And so I think when you take the money and administer the programs, it's up to us to make sure that those programs are administered well and thoughtfully and fairly. But should we continue such a program? I think absolutely. I think it does help people get out of that trap. We play politics with it a lot, but it does make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Christopher, we'll start the next question with you. What will you do to work towards restoring our country to its, state prior to 2020?
Probably one of my first goals is to get our energy back online. We need to start reproducing our fossil fuels back to a level that will support not only our needs, but those in Europe and the other countries. We cannot be paying money to countries that hate us, that want to see us dead. If we were having our own fuel and our own gas coming in right now, just imagine our GDP and how it would lower the cost for our truck drivers. I think truck drivers are some of the most less respected people in our country. Imagine if a truck driver could have lower fuel costs and get around our country, they'd make more money and we get our products around quicker. I'm not saying it's forever, but we're not ready yet to go totally green. So that would be the first thing I would do, is get us back on the line and make us a top energy producer in the world.
Thank you. Scott?
The question again?
What would you do to work towards restoring our country to its state prior to 2020?
Okay. Not just oil, just
In
general.
Just in general.
I think we've got a lot of work to do that, and it's not just in one dimension. I think we are seeing sort of the economy come unshackled. The shocks from the pandemic were really big. And we're still trying to figure out what they are and how to fix them. I think de-risking global supply chains and improving, I think oil and gas is part of it, so we're gonna have to pump more. I think we're gonna have to figure out how to, take people who are doing that kind of job and then help them kind of transition back. Some of that goes in cycles up and down. I think that's a bigger question. There's so many things that are kind of unhinged a little bit that are going to take a time to settle down.
Okay, thank you. And Army, what would you do?
I will agree that we need to become energy independent again. We need to start drilling right here. We also need to find other means that are easier, like natural gas or coal, to provide energy. We need to remove the strange restrictions and laws that our farmers and our ranchers are plagued with by a federal government, which means that we have to rely on foreign food supplies a lot of times. Also, our medical supplies. Our medicine comes from other countries. We need to start making our own medications here and supplies, medical supplies, because without that, like what happened during COVID, we were stuck.
Okay, thank you. Scott, we'll start with you on this one. Fairly straightforward question. Was the 2020 election fair and square?
Fair and square in terms of yes. I mean, I think it went through an awful lot of, I think there were 60 or 70 different test cases or cases through the judicial system that looked at every possible, challenge to it. And the outcome, I think, was fair and pretty well confirmed.
Okay, thank you. Army.
No. I took screenshots on election night of the numbers as I rolled through, and I watched numbers disappear. I also saw that in the primary. Our elections need to be back to the way they used to, where you need an ID, where the rolls need to be cleaned up. I volunteered to make phone calls and found that a lot of people were dead, or Pluto or Mickey Mouse. It's time to clean up our voter rolls. Otherwise, we're not going to be any better than any other country.
Thank you. Christopher.
Absolutely not. There was a lot of stuff that went on. You cannot change the rules as they did, using COVID as an excuse to circumvent the policies we've had in this place, in this country for years. You cannot kick out one party's people to tell them you're going to shut down the polls in the middle of the night to then reopen your polls and start counting when they're not there. Those rules were in place. And they're still doing these audits, and the results are coming out. But definitely there was things that were done that were underhanded, and we need to clean that up regardless of party.
Okay, thank you. Army, we'll start with you with this next question. How would you propose to make our system more equitable? Our tax system, to make our tax system more equitable.
Audit the federal government. Cut down federal programs. Repeated and redundant programs that are not needed. Cut taxes. Open up our business industries, encourage people to open up businesses so that our economy can flourish. But most of all, we need to put a restraint on the federal government.
Thank you. Christopher, how would you propose to make our tax system more equitable?
I think the first thing we need to do is find the loopholes that companies use to abuse the system. We as individuals can never get away with some of the things that large corporations do. So there's just too many loopholes. And I once heard this in another business I was in, that if you took one tax return and you gave it to 10 different tax attorneys, you would come out with 10 different answers. So that tells you right there there's a problem. So we need to find out what that problem is. We need to fix it, clean it up, and cut out the loopholes.
Okay, thank you. And Scott, how would you propose to make our tax system more equitable?
Yeah, thank you. I think making it more equitable means making it more fair. And I think the first thing to do is collect the taxes that people owe. There's a lot of taxes that aren't being paid, and typically by businesses or people who are pretty well off. And so collect what's owed. And then the second thing is make it more progressive. We've actually shifted the tax burden lower down. We've given a lot away to people who can afford to pay their taxes. And I think that would be a little bit more equitable and fair. I don't think we need to go to an extremes, but shifting it to a little bit more fair and more progressive is where I would come down.
Okay, thank you. Christopher, the next question is for you. What is your view of using federal funds to reduce student debt?
Wow. I still have some student debt. I think really the biggest problem isn't giving a free ride, but I think the interest rates are the biggest problem. If we want this to be a more educated nation, if you give somebody an education for free, they're not going to take it as serious. Some would, but the biggest problem is these interest rates. Why are we paying such an interest rate if we're trying to become a smarter country with more productive people that can create more world problems? So I think the biggest problem is just the interest rate.
Okay, thank you. Scott, what is your view of using federal funds to reduce student debt?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in my campaign I've pitched the idea of a zero interest principal only repayment plan. I have put that out there, and I think I get different kind of responses. Some people don't want, they've already paid their loans, they don't feel free and forgive is fair, but the way I kind of explain it is when I went through school, I came out with, after 5 years, just $5,000 in debt. What a student going through a 5-year college, public university today comes out with so much more debt. We really shifted the burden. We subsidized back then. We do the opposite of subsidizing now. And so just being fair, let's pay back the principal, but we can take interest off the table. It's federally funded. That would be at least a little bit fair, not adding profiteering and usury on top of it. I think that's the first part. The second part is trying to understand why our higher education system is costing so much. It's impoverishing both teachers and students, so I would like to kind of understand who gets the money, and then I think we need to really look at structural change. I'd like to get a lot more people going back as adults for higher education, and the only way to do that is to make it much cheaper, easier to access, and more effective.
Okay,
Stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Army?
A free ride is not a good idea. Low interest rate, I think, would help a lot of the students. The other thing is we have to look at why going to college costs so much. Why are the books so expensive? Why is it that there is no set standards as to, what the college can increase on their tuition? I think we need to look at several variables to decide, but a free ride is not a good idea. We had to pay our loans, Others should, but we could help them by decreasing the interest.
Okay, thank you. Scott, the next question, we'll start with you. Would you advocate restructuring the process of some Supreme Court appointees, and if so, how?
Sorry, say again?
Yeah, would you advocate restructuring the process of Supreme Court appointees, and if so, how?
I haven't really thought deeply about that one. I think there are a lot of ideas out on the table, such as having term limits on Supreme Court justices. I think I would stick with the system as it is. It's got its flaws. I don't think I would try packing the court. I think I would stick with what we have as it is. And times change, so the pendulum can swing in all sorts of different directions.
Okay, thanks. Christopher?
This is a tough question because what we just went through was not necessarily I'm not going to be too definitive on this, the best candidate. You cannot come out and choose a candidate based on race, color, gender, anything. It should have been the best qualified candidate. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. And like he mentioned, packing the court is the wrong answer, because the Democrats they throw 4 more people into the court this year. Then the following time when we're in charge and Republicans are in charge, we're going to throw 4 or 5 more. We need to keep this part as it is with 9.
Okay, thank you. And Army.
The system we have now can work. We should not pack the courts either way, the Republicans or the Democrats. But we do need to find the most qualified individual to take that position. I don't think we should look at race, gender, or age. But we do need someone who's qualified to interpret the Constitution.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the question portion. So now each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Army.
My name is Armidia Murray. I am running for U.S. Representative, 1st Congressional District. My website is armiesarmy.net. I want to run to bring back America, the Constitution that it stood for, the liberties and freedoms that we're losing, and I want everybody to be involved, because there's things that are happening that you're not aware of that you need to get informed. And I hope to inform you and get you involved in your country.
Christopher, you're next.
And then to the moderator, you even gave us clear instructions to say our name before every answer, so we failed on that one. So.
No, but I've been saying them, so I figured I'd fail at my job, so.
Well, my name is Christopher Mann. Again, I'm a retired military veteran. I also want to work on things like our police force and get national training programs. They need more training. They're doing a great job. I want to get involved with the schools and these school boards and help these parents get control so that their kids are not being indoctrinated, that the parents get full disclosure of what's being taught in the schools, and they get to have a say-so of what is going on right now, because when it comes down to it, those are our children, our grandchildren, and if there's problems going on with their life, we're the ones that are going to have to bear the fruit. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And Scott.
Yeah, thank you for having me here this evening. Again, Scott Phillips, and my website is scottphillipsforcongress.com. And I think if I wanted to leave sort of one set of thoughts here at the end, it's that as I look at where we need to go and what I think we need to accomplish, I think about it as 3 different buckets. I think we need to get back to the basics and get the basics done better and repair them. Things like safer cities, better schools, ending homelessness, just more efficiency and cost effectiveness, getting it done right, stabilizing the economy. I kind of put that all in the bucket of getting the basics right. Then I think we need to do some modernization and transformation. There's all sorts of things that I see, and I think it's a bipartisan issue. Our government needs to work better, be more efficient, and just perform better for everyone. That's sort of the bucket number 2. And that's things like restructuring higher education, making it more accessible and cost, looking at healthcare. I actually looked at some of the plans that people had brought to the table that would cost supposedly so much, $30 trillion for this. But if you looked at sort of what it would cost over the 10 years, it would actually save $25 trillion. So looking at how do we get things to make them better and transform, not from a partisan perspective, but from a bipartisan perspective. And then the last bucket is, as a country, I think we need to make some big, bold bets on the future. We can't do that and ignore the other 2 buckets. But I don't think if we don't make any big, bold bets on the future, then our future's not going to be that prosperous compared to the past. So that's sort of where I would go. Build the basics, transform what we're doing today, make some bold bets.
Great. Thank you all very much. You made my job easy. I didn't have to come and muscle any of you. So let's give all these candidates a round of applause. And we're going to take we'll take a little break here as we ask the second group, the state candidates, to please come forward. And I would encourage you all maybe to stand up and stretch a bit while we're doing that. Those seats might not be the most comfortable, so. Thank you very much. Helen, you got your job? Good job. You're doing your job? Love it, love it. Oh, you and Sarah, well-oiled machine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, if you all have questions, please get those to us as soon as possible so that we can work them into the rotation. I really appreciate that. And here's, those are the ones we just did, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's... I've got some down here. Yeah. I want to see if you got my name on it. Are there 5 folks here? Good job. Yeah. Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, could I have the candidates for State Senate and State Representative please come in, take your seats. Okay, great.
Good, thank you.
Just me. Let's do this. Cyrus. Yes. Okay, and how do you pronounce yours? Sitting beside you. Okay, good. I was going to mess it up, but thank you.
This time don't whisper anything. Oh, shh. Well, maybe after the answers, not during the answers.
All right, candidates, I'm going to have you all start to introduce yourself. Remember, in this section, you have 2 minutes, and we'll go ahead and start with Melissa.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Melissa Busch. I'm running for State Senate District 16. So happy to be here with all of you this evening. A little bit about myself. I'm a nurse and a mother. I live on the Columbia County side of our district in Warren, which is between Scappoose and St. Helens. I'm, again, really honored to be here with you this evening. In this time of great change in our district, I bring professional experience, ability for complex problem solving, and while I'm not a career politician, I have a proven record of courage in the face of seemingly unsurmountable challenges. When I was 15, growing up in my Midwestern hometown, I went to a public health clinic where a nurse told me that I was pregnant. I spent the next many months following preparing to become a young mother, but ultimately I found I wasn't able to be the parent I wanted to be at that time, and so instead I chose to expand my family beyond blood ties. I planned an open adoption for my daughter, and I became a birth mother instead. As a teenager making pregnancy and parenting decisions, I was introduced to the ways that public policy impacts our personal lives. Now, 25 years later, as a nurse myself and a mother of a beautifully blended family, I have come to understand that connection even more deeply. My nursing practice takes me into patients' homes here in Senate District 16 and into their private lives. Before and throughout the pandemic, I have shown up for them in their most vulnerable moments. Every day, I see the impact of policies and systems that are not working for our families, our children, or our elderly and disabled community members. You see, I know what makes us sick. It's not just bacteria and viruses. It's unstable housing, food insecurity, stagnant economic opportunities, and all of the daily struggles that create deep divisions and leave folks in our district feeling left behind without real choices. That is why I want to ensure equal access to the essential needs that will help our families and our communities thrive. I am ready to stand up and advocate in Salem for the critical needs of our diverse and expansive district, and I am ready to work to move our communities forward together.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne?
Hi, my name is Suzanne Weber, and I'm currently the representative for House District 32, and I'm seeking the Senate seat in District 16. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a 50-year resident of Tillamook. 30 of those years were spent in a classroom just a half a block from my home, where I taught first, second, third grade in a special class. After retiring from the classroom, my sister-in-law and I owned 2 small businesses. I have 5 children in a blended family and 8 grands. I lost my husband to pancreatic cancer 6 years ago. I have a real belief in the importance of service to my community. I was a city councilor for 8 years, and I was the mayor of Tillamook for 10 years. Education has always been a priority of mine, and I will continue to fight for funding for teachers and students. We in rural Oregon are afflicted by the same problems as much of the state, but we seem to be the last recognized and funded. In a long session, I was able to bring back $40 million to the Northwest Oregon, and another $7+ million to us in the short session. It is common sense to protect the quality of life by holding government accountable for our tax dollars and bringing those tax dollars back to our district, giving our kids and families a chance to build a life. Farming, forestry, and fishing are the backbone of our economic viability, and they must also be protected. We must continue to use common sense effort and begin by supporting our rural Northwest Oregon priorities.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Logan Laity, a small business owner from Tillamook and community advocate in this district, supporting our working families and first responders. I have a track record of diving in and doing the work for our community. We are in the midst of a housing crisis. Folk are leaving our communities to find education and jobs elsewhere, and many in our community cannot afford health care. I understand the hardship of trying to find a home on the coast, both rentals and to own, and I still cannot find a home of my own. We are losing teachers and nurses and essential workers because of this. I volunteered to organize and protect the Oregon Health Plan. As president of my student union, I advocated for education reform. In my first year on the coast, I fought for a ballot measure that would fund workforce housing. I serve as director of an economic renewal agency. There, we use taxpayer funds and invest in our small businesses and our communities. This is the role of a legislator. I will work to fund child and elder care, fight to protect OHP, expand the Student Success Act to invest in career and technical education, work on housing reform, and start building homes that we can afford. I am Logan Laity, and I am the sole candidate for this state office with years of experience fighting for these issues, locally and in Salem. Thank you for your vote to keep the North Coast our home.
Okay. Thank you. Cyrus.
Hello, I'm Cyrus Javadi. I'm a dentist down in Tillamook. I'm running as a Republican for State House District 32. I've lived in Tillamook and Astoria. I've been in Tillamook now for 10 years. Prior to that, lived up here in Astoria. My mom still lives here. Familiar with this great community. We moved to the coast because we wanted the values that we found here. We liked being able to go to the grocery store and see people, our neighbors, people we worked with, and be able to chat, to catch up, to feel like we were part of something. In the big cities we lived in, you maybe didn't even know the guy who lived right next door to you. Here you may know everybody on your street. When somebody dies, you go to their funeral. When somebody opens a new business, you go down there to support them. And so I want that to continue, and so that's why I'm running. I believe in our community. We're special. We live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. We have people who, we're a community of families. We're a community of friends. We're not just a community of Republicans versus Democrats. I'd like to see that change. I'd like us to have real conversations in Salem about things that really matter. and not getting caught up in issues that really aren't going to impact our daily lives. We have problems we need to fix, and I think as a small business owner, as a dentist who's believes in good science, as somebody who believes in helping the community, as a father, that I can go to Salem and represent those interests just as well as many of you probably could. And so that's why I'm sitting here and hoping for that chance. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, we'll start the first question with you, Suzanne. How do you plan to address the housing crisis?
Thank you. We've been working on housing now for quite some time, and we still haven't got it. We have been giving people money for rent. We have been giving people money to be able to build high-density structures, but we still haven't got that place where people can afford to live and be able to thrive. And that is what I'm going to work on next, is the cost of housing, the cost of rents, and working to see how we can reduce that so it can be a reality for a family to be able to have a secure home.
Okay, thank you. Logan, same question. How do you plan to address the housing crisis?
Thank you. Housing is important because it provides us economic security. It allows our communities to remain viable to support all sorts of people in our systems, everywhere from a teacher to an essential worker to a doctor and a millwright. What's important about housing is that it is the great equalizer so long as we have a shelter over our head. We're losing our workers, and as your next state legislator, I will work to rework our zoning codes to allow for multifamily housing, expand down payment assistance, and make zoning more efficient by providing incentives to our local planning departments to make permitting more efficient and effective. Thank you.
Cyrus.
Housing's a real crisis. It's been the American dream for a long time to own your own place. Our children and our seniors and our families need a place that feels stable and secure. So this has to be one of our top priorities. I think where we start is with those land use laws that have been on the books for 40 years. They're preventing us from using land that's sitting right in front of our faces, and we don't need to give up our farmland or our forestry land to get it. So we need to take a closer look, and then we need to let our local leaders, our mayors, our county commissioners, decide how to best use those resources with our planning departments to get the red tape out of the way. And let's make this possible, because if we keep going in the direction we're going, no one is going to be able to afford a house, and we need teachers. We need places for our kids to live. We need doctors. So this has to be it, and I think we start with those land use laws.
Okay, thank you. And Melissa, how do you plan to address the housing crisis?
Thank you. As a nurse, I know how critically important it is that people have a safe place to call home. I see every day in the work that I do the impacts of lack of adequate housing for everyone from those that are impacted by houselessness to people that are working stable jobs and have good incomes but have been priced out of the market, to those that are wanting to be first-time home buyers. So I think we need solutions at every level of the housing crisis that we're experiencing. I think that takes public-private partnership and collaboration across all levels of government. I think that this is a complex problem that needs a multifaceted solution. And so I think that we're gonna have to really look at the way that we can help not only get folks into housing, but help them stay there with wraparound services that will supply some of the supports that are needed that impact a lot of folks' ability to stay in housing in the first place. Excuse me, ran out of wind. So that said, I think that this is our top priority across this district. I haven't talked to one person that hasn't told me that this is their number one priority.
Okay, thank you. Logan, the next question we'll start off with you is, explain your position on climate change.
Yeah, I think climate change is one of the defining issues of our, oh, can you hear okay?
No, we started with Suzanne. Yeah. Look, who's the moderator here? All right, crowd, no more talking. Sorry, Logan, go ahead and start his clock over, please.
Thank you so much, Moderator. I think that climate change is one of the defining issues of our day. I know it as I serve, as part of my small business, I help our community nonprofits. One of those is the Emergency Volunteer Corps, and there we train our volunteers to respond to natural disasters. Well, disasters are becoming more and more frequent because of climate change. Wildfires not just have the potential to tear away our forest land, they are. You know, in the southern part of our district, we lost plenty of harvestable forest land. We lost amazing salmon habitat because of ash into our waterways. Climate change is a solution that we need to tackle today, not because it is only for environmentalists or only for the tourism industry, because it affects every area of our lives, including our natural resource economy. In the legislature, I will work to combat climate change and reduce our CO2 pollutions, because it is the only way forward for our existence on the North Coast. Thank you.
Thanks, Logan. Cyrus, explain your position on climate change.
Climate change is clearly an issue. I think where the conflict comes is how we're going to pay for it and what sacrifices do we need to make. And those policies that we come up with, how are they impacting our businesses, our schools, our communities, our forests, and our waterways. So we need serious discussions about it. Just because we come up with a good idea, if it's not possible to fund it, we need to be really careful about moving forward with it. We have a lot of priorities, and we can't dump all the money into fixing just one problem. So definitely something we need to be at the table with about on both sides. I think denying that there's a climate issue isn't going to get us anywhere. But I think thinking that we can solve it by listening to maybe one or two giant lobby groups or a few politicians who want to make it their axe to grind is not going to get us where we need to go either. So, yeah, we need to seriously look into it.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, explain your position on climate change.
I think that we're seeing a real opportunity where we're at right now, that we have a choice about how we deal with this crossroads that we're at. I think that there is an opportunity to look at creating jobs and also tackling some of the challenges that we're seeing as the environment that we live in and that we love is changing around us. I think that there is more common value here than people lend to when we have this conversation. I know that our folks that work in timber, that our folks that work in the fisheries have just as much vested interest in our natural resources as those that like hiking or hunting or fishing on those waters. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to come together and to look for collaborative solutions. Some of that work is already being done in the legislature right now. The Private Forest Accord is an example of that type of collaboration, and it's a first step towards sitting down at the table together and working towards solving real problems in a way that everyone can come together.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, explain your position on climate change.
Climate change is a worldwide challenge, and it needs a worldwide solution, and it needs agreement, and it needs scientific proof, because people need to believe in it in order to make whatever changes that there are that are necessary to be able to combat whatever climate change is. I do not think that we need to be punishing some people and blaming some people for the carbon footprint that they have. I think that we need to begin to discuss this together and know that if we are to have a solution, that solution is going to come from a place that is bigger than Oregon. It's going to need to come from China and the United States and France and India and all of the other areas that are not addressing it adequately.
Okay, thank you. Cyrus, we'll start with you for the next question. How would you stop the overreach of government in our schools?
Local control. So we need we need transparency. So parents and teachers are working together on curriculums that make the most sense for our kids, instead of letting politicians in Salem decide what our children need to learn and being influenced by groups who don't have kids in our schools who don't know our way of life. The way, there are some things that are universal, mathematics, learning to read and write, and we need those to be as free from politics, social justice issues, you name it. We just need our kids to learn the things they need to be successful in life, whether that's in the workforce or whether that's at college. So we start with moving it back to the local level. We have serious discussions, we get transparency, we look for good outcomes, we try to measure those, we hold our teachers and our leaders accountable, and we hold our kids accountable as well so that we can see measurable success.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, how would you stop the overreach of government in our schools?
It saddens me that the conversation around education has become so politicized. I trust teachers. I trust our public school institutions. As a nurse, I know that when I go into people's homes and they look at me as a trusted resource because I have education and training that allows me to care for them in the way that they need. And when I send my kids to public school, I look to the teachers with the same level of trust and reverence because I know that they have worked hard and long to gain the education and experience that they need to be good stewards to our children. So my concern with our schools is not about government overreach, it's about underfunding. I think we're asking teachers to do too much with too little. I think that the teachers are with our students every day. They help support our kids in so many ways. And I think that in order to be able to give them the resources they need, that we should be doing everything we can to support them with adequate funding and resources so that our schools can thrive.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, how would you stop the overreach of government in our schools?
Local control is important. And I think that this was pointed out to us very poignantly during the pandemic, because children were at home and parents finally saw what children were learning, and they weren't happy. And I think that that is why we had all of the people all of a sudden decide it was important to be a school board member. And it is important to be a school board member. It's important to be involved in your children's education. We had a bill that we wanted to have passed this last session, which the majority party voted us down every time we brought it up, which was to have every school district publicize on their website every part of their curriculum every single year, so that teachers would have something to be able to show parents, to tell parents where to go to find the curriculum, and parents would know exactly what their children were learning, and make things easier.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
No.
I could go on.
I know that, Suzanne. I know that. Logan, how would you stop the overreach of government in our schools?
Thank you. I am a product of 2 state education systems, both in high school, public schools, community college, and I've seen 2 very similar but also slightly different models. And I know, having seen both, that we deserve a say in our children's future. And this takes multiple forms. This is not only electing us here as your representatives to advocate for these policies in Salem, this is also going to your school board. This is also working one-on-one in your parent-teacher conferences. This is trusting the professionals who are professionally licensed to actually instruct your kids. Public education is the only system where you and I can vote to who runs our schools. It ensures that our child will be taught by someone who is properly licensed. It makes sure that every child belongs, no matter their income or disability. And I believe in quality education, which is why I think that if we want to get to a state where we can actually see the curriculum, we need to get to a state where that curriculum and those lesson plans are not being developed a week before they're instructed, or sometimes even the day before. And that starts with funding our K-12 schools, because we're asking too much on our community teachers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Melissa, we're going to go to you for the first response to the next question. Women...
Did Dr. Javadi
Yeah, he started. Again, I'm the moderator. I'm
you're-
just teasing. I'm glad you guys are all looking out for everyone. And really, I need someone to check me.
Deeply immersed.
Fine. Okay. Sarah, I won't be doing this again. This has been too much for me this evening. Okay. All right. So, Melissa, we're going to start with you. Are you ready? Women have had to work hard to become fully participating citizens in America. Nationally, choice is fully under attack, and many folks will look to states like Oregon for leadership on reproductive rights. What is your position on protecting our right to choose, and how you protect our reproductive freedom?
Thank you. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. As I said, I am a person that has made many decisions in my life and had to experience what it's like to make difficult choices firsthand. And because of that, I think it's critical that we make sure that every person that experiences a pregnancy has the ability to have choice and to make sure that they're able to access the medical care that is afforded in this country of ours. These are not decisions that are made in a vacuum. Women are experiencing these things in multiple times in their life, and we can't just say that it's one type of woman that has an abortion and one type of woman that parents and one type of woman that places a child for adoption. These are personal choices between a person and their partner and their God and their doctor, and I don't think that we should be doing anything other than honoring that. So that said, I will always stand up for a choice and make sure that Oregon remains a safe harbor for everyone in this country.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, what is your position on protecting the right to choose and how you protect our reproductive freedom?
I am pro-choice from conception to natural death.
Okay, thank you. Logan.
Thank you. I have a friend who, as a young parent, went with her husband to go to a hospital. At that hospital, they were informed that the kid that they so long to bring into this world, if they were born, the mother would die because of complications due to excessive bleeding in the womb. I believe that these decisions are made only between, and should only be made between, parents, faith, if they choose to believe, and their medical providers. At this hospital, that decision was made for them. They would have had to kill the mother, in this case, for a chance at saving the kid. They immediately rushed the child to a public hospital where they were able to make that choice themselves. I will always stand up for the rights enshrined by not just the United States Constitution, but the Oregon Constitution. Pro-choice is the law of the land, and I will maintain it.
Okay, thank you. Cyrus.
I'm pro-life. I believe and will fight to protect the lives of the unborn. I don't know if most people know, but in Oregon, we're pretty radical. We have politicians that are using taxpayer dollars to fund extremely late-term abortions. I think that's unacceptable. I think we need to go back and review that policy, listen to what the Supreme Court and other states are doing, and try to find a solution that makes more sense.
Okay, thank you, Cyrus. Suzanne, you're up next. How do you feel about the current fishing regulations and how they affect commercial fishing?
Well, fishing depends upon how many fish are there. How many fish are in the river? How many fish are available? What kind of a fisherman you are? Are you a commercial fisherman? Are you a sports fisherman? All of that weighs into fishing. I think that they all should be honored, and I think that we've come to the point where we're having to put limits on how many fish you can catch. I support the gill netters and what they are doing, because they are the ones who are putting the fish on the restaurant plates. I support sport fishermen, because they're spending their time, their money, their energy in supporting our economy through their hobbies and their ability to get out and enjoy and recreate. I'm a fisherman.
All right, thank you. Logan, how about you? How do you feel about the current fishing regulations and how they affect commercial fishing?
Thank you. As a fisherman myself, I'm recreational, unfortunately. I understand that this is a complex issue for us here in Astoria. You know, sometimes it seems like we have the gill netters and the sportsmen and the Army Corps of Engineers all kind of pecking at each other, trying to get access to the same water rights or make sure that we can, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that there's a fish there and different types of fish there for every single type of industry that we have. You know, one of these complex players is the Army Corps of Engineers and how much impact they have over the birds who prey on the fish here. As a state legislator, it is our job not just to work with the local players, with the local associations, but also to work with our U.S. congressional representatives and work with, you know, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and try to find common ground. That's what I'll do. Not just stick in our little bubble here on the North Coast, which I love, but also expand it, because the role of a state legislator is to represent us at all levels of government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Cyrus, how do you feel about the current fishing regulations and how they affect commercial fishing?
Well, I don't like them. I think they're getting in the way of our fishing industry. So what we need is more fish. And if there's plenty of fish, then I think our commercial fishermen and our gill netters, our sports fishermen, will stop having as many problems. So we need to get rid of. We need to deal with predation. They're destroying our fishing grounds. We need to look at ways. I mean, our communities were built on the backs of fishermen, right? This is a fishing town. And this Lower Columbia has one of the greatest natural resources right in front of our faces. So having people from out of town dictate how we're going to, earn a living, how we're going to provide fish on their plates is ridiculous. So more fish, that's my policy. We need more fish.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cyrus. And Melissa, how do you feel about the current fishing regulations?
This is an issue I've been learning more about since I've been running for this office, and talking with folks from commercial fishing industries. My concern is that some of the regulations have favored some of the sports fishermen, fisher people, and have unfortunately meant that a lot of the dollars leave our community, so that we've got people coming from out of town on tourist adventures to fish our waters, which is fantastic. We love people visiting, but unfortunately they then leave and take that money elsewhere. And so I think that it's really important that we do make sure that people that live and work in our communities have access to the work that they do, and that works, that the dollars that they earn stay in our community as much as possible. So to that extent, I think that there could be a reevaluation of those regulations and how we balance those interests, because I think we need both, but we should also make sure that we're not compromising the livelihood of the folks that live and work in our community.
Okay, thank you. Logan, you're up next with this question. This one is a multiple choice question.
Ooh.
Sort of. How would you address one of these challenges? I'm going to list four. Okay. Only one. Mental illness, drug addiction, houselessness, or poverty. So how would you address one of those?
I have to choose?
You have to choose. You can only do one.
Okay. I want to end the humanitarian crisis that we have on our streets right now. It's in Astoria, that's where we see it the most, but honestly, it's all over the district, all the way from Nesquin and Tillamook to Seaside to Astoria and Clatsop. Our churches and nonprofits and community groups have all banded together to transition the homeless from dangerous camps to safe temporary shelter and then long-term housing. We need to support this good work because it will help us create stronger communities, downtowns, and frankly, preserve human rights. These are our neighbors, whether we choose to accept it or not. They deserve care. I will work in the state legislature to provide funding to our nonprofits to continue to work on these issues. And yeah, because it is a humanitarian crisis. And I have a hard time sleeping sometimes because of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Cyrus, how would you address, again, one of these challenges? I'll list them again. Mental illness, drug addiction, houselessness, or poverty?
I think the biggest problem we have that would affect all this is our drug addiction issue. I think drugs are a massive problem. I think we have tried to legalize drugs now, hard drugs in Oregon, and with the promise that we would fund rehabilitation efforts, and that has gone unfunded. And so what we have are people flocking to our cities, becoming addicted to drugs. They can't hold a job now. Basically they can't do anything. They can't function normally in society. They become a burden on the system. They're still human beings, and we still need to reach out to them. But if we deal with homelessness, if we deal with mental illness, if we deal with poverty, we're dealing with the outcomes rather than the source. So I think we need to get back to it. I think if we can fix our drug addiction problem, we're going to see a huge reduction in all those other areas. So we start there. We start punishing drug addiction, or not drug addiction, we start punishing the use of and selling of drugs. We fund rehabilitation as best we can. That's where we start drugs, get them off the streets.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, how would you address one of these challenges? Again, mental illness, drug addiction, houselessness, or poverty?
As a nurse, I understand that all of these things are aspects of healthcare, every single one of them, and so I would invest in healthcare. Because I think that if we're really looking at comprehensive care for everyone in our community, that we are going to be investing in housing, we're going to be investing in substance use treatment, we're going to be investing in behavioral health resources. These are all intertwined issues, and I think that if we are looking them as separate silos, that we are not going to solve the problem. So I think that we must look at this we need like the 10,000-foot view to really be talking about how these things are intertwined and how we can address them simultaneously so that we can actually get real solutions that are sustainable, not just for an immediate Band-Aid, but a long-term solution.
Okay, thank you. And Suzanne, how would you address one of these challenges? Mental illness, drug addiction, houselessness, poverty?
I would begin by addressing houselessness, because we have great areas of people that are camping and without facilities, and I would begin by making sure that we had areas where these people could safely camp, if that's what it's going to be called, because then if we have these areas where people can safely camp, then we can provide them with other services. We can help them if they have a mental health condition that needs addressed. If they have drug and addiction, we can bring people into that camp because we know where they are and what kind of conditions they're living in, and we can help them because we have them right there. Not putting any kind of conditions on them prior to trying to help them, but I think that is one way that we can work through this houselessness crisis and start to bring some order to it.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Cyrus, you're up next for the first response to this question. What are your views on logging regarding the balance between jobs, environment, and recreation?
I think that our private industry is managing it pretty well. I think our state agencies are getting in the way of that. I think our private industries, Hampton Lumber and others, the loggers, they want trees. They need work. And so they do a great job of replanting. They do a good job of taking care of our forests and making sure that natural resource is preserved. We need those revenues for our schools, for our communities. And agencies are coming in trying to make that pie smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's being done by an agency. It's not being done by the legislature. Sure. So they're running amok on the executive side, and we have people who are making investments, who care about our community, and they can't be heard. So we need to start dialing that back. We need to reinforce and support our loggers, our communities, our families that depend on those jobs and those resources.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, what are your views on logging regarding the balance between jobs, environment, and recreation?
I think we need good jobs and we need safe air to breathe and clean water to drink. And I think that we can do both. I think that this is a conversation that often gets divided into a very black and white either or situation. And I think that that is oversimplifying. This is a complex conversation. But again, I think that if we meet complex conversations with multifaceted solutions, that we can come to a place where we can find agreement and we can find things that look like compromise. So again, I think that there's been work towards that already in the legislature, and that involved all of the stakeholders. That involved conservation groups and timber industry and fishing industry. And I think that, again, this is something that if we step back and stop digging our heels into the ground and look for our common ground, that we can find it. At the end of the day, I know that jobs and the environment are both public health issues. And so as a nurse, I'm going to support both of those things. And I think it's doable.
Thank you. Suzanne, what are your views on logging?
I had a great experience today. I went up in the woods and I went to the mills, and we were talking about water and logging and how they are all intertwined. And we met with two different mill groups, both the Stimson Mill Group and the Hampton Group. And what they're doing was telling us how they are working their way through government regulations for guaranteeing the safety and the viability of the logging industry into the future, showing us where they planted trees, and in 47 years they will be harvesting those trees, and not just one single species, but 3 single species in an area. So you had diversity, and how they were working together with the government agencies. I think that they have found ways to make this all work for us and provide extensive employment.
Thank you. Logan, what are your views on logging?
Thank you. On logging, I agree that one side does not have all the solutions, but I also agree with many things said here tonight. So I wanted to take this opportunity to bring up something new. On the issue of clean drinking water, there are so many of our coastal communities that rely on water that comes from what we know as riparian streams, but what other people know as just wonderful creeks. One of the issues that we're facing here on the North Coast has to do with how tightly we are able to harvest to those riparian streams. This affects our salmon runs, this affects our drinking water and how much we have to pay in infrastructure bills and utility bills. And you know what? We need to be able to say, in our community, we have clean drinking water. I grew up in a town where I didn't know if my drinking water was safe. I grew up next to a Superfund site, which means that the drinking water at one point was so toxic that the state, the private companies, and the federal government had to join together to protect the community. Like, we are literally shooting birds out of the water because it's so toxic. I do not want to see that happen to here on the coast. And right now we're having to put forward so much in taxpayer dollars and private dollars, including in timber company dollars, to protect our drinking water that we really shouldn't have to be doing in the first place. I'm gonna look for common sense solutions, working with everyone, as we've talked here, to make sure we don't have to have this happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. Okay, Melissa, the next question goes to you first. Who are your campaign primary supporters?
Can you repeat the question?
Who are your campaign primary supporters? So who are your supporters?
Okay. Making sure I understood correctly. I think my campaign supporters are individual people that live in our community. This is a grassroots campaign. I am not taking large corporate donations. I am reaching out to community members. I've spent every day that I am not visiting patients, traveling across this district, meeting with people from every corner of the district to hear about what the issues are that are most important to community members. And those are the people that are funding this campaign, and those are the people that are supporting this campaign and volunteering for this campaign. In addition to that, I am a union member. I'm a proud union member, and the Nurses Association has endorsed this campaign. I've been endorsed by the Oregon Education Association, electricians, carpenters, hospital workers, the AFL-CIO. So I think I have support from kind of all aspects across the state and across this district, including, most importantly, community members like you.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, who are your supporters?
You know, support is more than money. Support is telling you that you're doing a good job, that you're paying attention, that you're answering people's concerns, that you're working for solutions. The majority of my campaign funds at the present time are coming from small donations. And I have not had any campaign funds yet from any unions. I did have one from the beer folks and one from AT&T, but most of them are coming in the form of personal checks from people that believe in what I'm doing and my common sense effort.
Okay, thank you. Logan, what about you? Who are your supporters?
In my advocacy and in this campaign, I have not taken a single corporate check, and I can say that with utmost confidence in my entire political history. Part of that's because it's new, part of that because it's my first campaign, but part of it is because I've done a lot of advocacy work, and I believe that, especially when you start, in order to prove your viability as a candidate, you need to be talking with the people, you need to be garnering support from the people, you need to be talking with them with the phone, doing everything you can to actually make sure that you are representing the values of your community, not people who claim to represent certain sections of the community. So I'm going to get there. I'm working on all these different union endorsements and really trying to convince people that I really am in the best interests of you. But right now, I am proud to say I am the least funded candidate here. But I also think I have a really great groundswell of support from the people who actually matter, the voters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Cyrus, who are your supporters?
My supporters are fishermen, loggers, doctors, teachers, neighbors, people in the community, patients, Representative Suzanne Weber, supporting my campaign. It doesn't matter, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated, I don't ask what they are. I just tell my story, and I believe in our community. I listen to the stories they have to tell, and ask what I can do to help and serve if elected. So hopefully hopefully all of you are going to be supporters here pretty soon. So that's important to me. I don't want to do this if I can't have the support of the community. If I lose because I can't tell a good story and listen to you and listen to them, then I don't need to be in Salem. So I think a good representative, at the end of the day, maybe isn't the one that's best at policy, but the one who is best at listening and reaching out and keeping that door open so that people in our district feel like they've got someone that is listening and that cares. And that's what I want to do. So,
okay, thank you. Suzanne, the next question is going to start with you. What are your views on changing the boundaries of the state of Oregon?
That's interesting because, there was a movement to create the state of Jefferson in the southern part of the state to join with part of California, and that was unsuccessful. I think that the result of these elections to change the borders is because of frustration, and I think it goes straight to the urban-rural divide, and the fact that the valley, the Willamette Valley, seems to be dictating what is going to happen to the whole state of Oregon, and our rural Oregon is being left out of the equation. And I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, thank you. Logan, your views on changing the boundaries of the state?
Yeah, one thing that I noticed about these particular citizens' petitions is that it was a very low turnout election, which doesn't mean it's not valid. I mean, these are very valid concerns, but it is important for us to weigh, because we're not from these communities, we have to weigh the interests of the entire population. And we have to think, okay, these are the people who said this thing without knowing very much about what was going on. If we are able to bring a public forum and say, this is everything, this is how much it's going to cost you, this is how much it's going to cost us, this is what you have to stand to benefit, this is what we have to stand to benefit, then hold an actual election and get it and decide one way or another whether it's going to happen. Frankly, I don't think we have a role in the legislature to decide whether or not this happens. I think it's the role of the people to decide. And our only goal is to make sure that the rest of Oregon, should they choose to leave, is well-funded and can thrive as a community. If they choose to stay, our goal is to support everyone. You know, we talk a lot about the urban-rural divide, but we have cities like Bend and Albany. You know, it's a gradient. We have very similar drug problems that they do in Portland, right? We have very similar homelessness problems. It's a gradient. They have farms in Portland. We need to represent everyone, and sometimes that means letting them make their own decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Cyrus, what are your views on changing the boundaries?
I think Representative Weber hit the nail on the head. I think there's a lot of frustration. I think Salem's not listening. I think what we need to do is make Oregon a place where people want to stay. And people who have left, our friends or family who have gotten fed up, we want them back. We want them to come back and be with us. So that means opening the door, that means taking it serious, that means listening, I mean figuring out what we're doing wrong. And let's not break up Oregon, but let's fix it. Let's find out what's going wrong, and let's get back to work. And like Representative Weber also said, this is an urban-rural issue. We need to stop treating the state like it's all one county. We need to start listening to those differences and figure out individual solutions on the local level that will make people feel like it's a place where they want to live.
Okay, thank you. And Melissa, your views on changing the boundaries?
I would like to see more unification and less division. I think that there's more that we have in common than we have that separates us. I think at the end of the day, most families want a roof over their head. They want to be able to know that their kids are safe. They want a good paying job and food on the table. And so I hear the conversation around rural and urban, and I think there are unique differences in our communities across the state. But again, I think that if we focus on all of the things that are most different about us, I think we're never going to solve problems. At the end of the day, though, this is not a decision that's made under the jurisdiction of the legislature. So if that's something that individual communities decided they wanted to move forward with, as a senator, I would not be able to stop them. But I guess I would invite people to come to the table and have conversations as opposed to leaving, because I don't think that solves problems.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Logan, we're going to start with you on this. What is your view of the kicker policy?
I think the kicker is an innovative process for budget surplus. I think there's been a lot of policies proposed over the last few years trying to figure out how do we fund emergency response, disaster relief, which we are going to need a lot more of here on the North Coast. We have a pocket of money for this purpose. Frankly, I think common sense budgeting and just having really accurate forecasts will go a long way to making sure that we can continue to thrive in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Cyrus, what's your view of the kicker policy?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the state of Oregon has giant stacks of cash, and if they have too much cash, they need to give it back to us. That was money that belonged to us that we worked hard for, and when there's some left over, when they got the forecast wrong, we want that back so we can invest back in ourselves and in our families. I don't trust that politicians in Salem have my best interests at heart with that money. I think the more money they have, the more money they want to spend. I think there's no accountability, or there's limited accountability and stewardship for how that money gets spent. I think when something goes wrong, a politician doesn't get punished. When a business person makes a wrong decision, that business might fail. So we need to shift that money back, and because I know that you guys, just as well as I do, know how to best spend that money.
Okay, great, thank you. Melissa, what's your view of the kicker policy?
I think we should re-examine it. I think Oregon has a revenue problem. We have a lot of things that we need to fund in this state, including housing, including education, including healthcare, including programs for substance abuse and mental health treatment. I hear folks talking about how these are issues and that we want solutions, and I think that we need to be willing to put our money where our mouth is and invest in those things if we really care about solving these problems. And so I think if we have tax revenue that has been collected, that we should be examining how we're using that money. I know that I hear from a lot of constituents that they would rather those dollars get invested back into our communities rather than coming back to them in form of a $100 tax refund, because one person's $100 doesn't go as far as when all of us pool together to support our community.
Okay. Thank you. Suzanne, what's your view of the kicker policy?
I think the kicker policy is another great example of what they say about the state of Oregon. Oregon has plenty of money, they just have a spending problem. And I think that what the kicker has pointed to with the money that is going back to the people is that we need tax reform. We need to look at the forms that we fill out every year. We need to look at how we rate in the nation as to what kind of tax forms we have. How are we collecting those taxes? If we are collecting too much in taxes and we can't spend all that, then we better look at how we're collecting those taxes. And I've been working with the CPA to examine our tax forms and see what it is we can do in our state to make that better, make it more common sense, and save us in the end from having to deal with this kicker every single year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're at the end of the questions, and so Cyrus, we're going to start with you for the final statement. You have 2 minutes.
You know, like I started off saying, I love our community. This is probably one of the greatest places to live, not only in Oregon, but probably in the country. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's a small town, we have limited crime. We're seeing that change. We're seeing more and more of that blight spread from our cities out here, and we need to stop that. I've got 5 kids. They've gone through the public schools. This is a place where I want my family to live. This is a place where I want other people's families to live. So I want to protect that way of life. I want to invest in our businesses and the people who are trying to make a living here. I want to protect those fishing industries, farmers, forestry. We've got a lot of complex issues that are not Republican and Democrat issues. There are issues, and we need to look at ways together to solve them and not make it. We need to stop with the partisan politics stuff. It's not getting us anywhere. It doesn't matter. We shouldn't have to worry about who's in the majority. We should be sitting in those committee meetings. We should be coming back to our communities and talking to business leaders, neighbors, friends, families, and finding out what's the solution. You know forestry better than I do. How would you fix this? You know education as a teacher better than I do. What's your input? And then going back to Salem and bringing that information back there, and then coming up with policies, limiting executive overreach, trying to tweak those agencies so we can fix some of the source of some of these problems. So I don't have all the answers. If you're looking for someone who has all the answers, Don't vote for me. But what I will do is listen to you guys and try to figure out with you what those answers are, and then take those solutions to Oregon and fight for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Melissa.
As I have traveled our district as a nurse and as a candidate for Senate District 16, I see folks from all walks of life. I have driven up many a driveway to houses with flags flying, pledging allegiance to a wide range of political and social interests. And yet I walk in, I sit down at the kitchen table, and I care for each of those patients and their families in the same way, no matter their viewpoints or their politics. I show up. I listen to our community. I share their concerns, and I genuinely want to find solutions to the problems that they face. There are many members of our communities across this district that are experiencing legitimate struggles. Each and every one of those people would be my constituents. As a nurse, I am an expert in collaboration. I am an expert in caring. I am an expert in solving critical problems that can mean life or death. When elected, that is what I will bring to the table. You can count on me to listen, to learn, to advocate, to work as part of a team that we are. That's what I do every day as a nurse, and that's what I will keep doing as your senator. I am in this race for all of you, so we can create the communities we want to live in now and into the future, for our children and for our grandchildren for years to come. But I cannot do it alone. I hope you'll join me, and together, let's work to move your families and our communities forward.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne.
Thank you. We need to continue our common sense effort that we have begun by supporting our rural Northwest Oregon priorities. We have an aging infrastructure, we have housing, education, and government accountability that we need to address. All these things loom on the horizon, and I feel that it is more important than ever to have an advocate who is someone who has made their longtime home and who knows the needs of the constituents and what needs to be done to serve the people. And I feel that I am that common sense person with those qualifications to get that accomplished, and I hope that you will support me and vote for me in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan.
Thank you all for having us tonight. I really appreciate it. One of the reason why I got into coastal politics in the first place was because of how difficult it was for my family to find a home here on the coast. This is our chosen home. We chose to be here. It is amazing. We would not trade it for any other position. We love how dynamic it is. I got into coastal politics because I saw how my own family, who's doing okay, middle class, is not able to. We couldn't find a home. We have teachers who can barely afford a trailer park here, right? Not everyone wants to live in a trailer park. They move over to the valley. We have a retention problem. Our small businesses cannot hire, not because people are sitting around on couch. Unemployment benefits are long gone. The reason why we can't find people to hire is because people are leaving us for higher wages over in the valley. So what can we do? We can raise wages, we can lower the cost of living. What I want to do is lower the cost of living, and if we can, raise wages in the process. This means investments in career and technical education. This means helping everyone find a home. Invest equity in a home. Find affordable rental. Create new housing. I am here because I have seen what can happen when we come together and advocate for these issues. This is how we got the Student Success Act to invest in our neighborhood schools and reduce class sizes, right? I am here because I love working with people, not because I know all the answers, but because collectively we do. And thank you so much, and I will have the honor of, I hope to have the honor to represent you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to all the candidates. Thank you all very much. We'll take a little break, and then we'll have our third group, the Clatsop County Commissioners, come forward and take a seat. No. If you need to use the restroom, you can go out the doors here, and you'll find them right out in the hallway.
Thank you for moderating.
No, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thanks. Oh, here's the other ones for you. There you go. Yep. Yeah.
I've got your two phones, right?
Yeah.
And I've got my phone too. So
Right.
3 phones. And so I go, and I pick up the phone, the other phone because you have a message.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Is that Logan in
Yeah.
the sport coat there?
Yes, that's Logan. Yeah.
I have 3 phones, right?
Yeah.
And so then I get this phone and I'm like, oh crap, there's a message.
Oh, yeah.
There's a message.
Okay.
And I don't want to see your phone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a message.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's emergency because I got the emergency phone, right?
Right.
So I call Desiree to say, what's the code to get into here? And she gives me the code and it doesn't work.
They're just making fun of me. They're watching the live feed and making fun of me. That's what this is. This is not an emergency.
So then Jade tries a couple codes and we call Desiree and so she's like, and then I go, because I tell Jade the other thing is, this is on the back, I said my sweaty hands must have made that leave. So then Jade and I, because then Tina hijacks my phone so that she could talk to Desiree about something that happened. And so then Jade and I take this one in the other room and we go, swipe.
Right.
And it just lets you in, there is no code to get in. See? Anyway, I can take your phone because I don't want you to lose it.
They're running for state representative.
Okay then.
Anyway, there we go. Are you doing good, Sarah? All right. Good evening. Everybody's good. I like the upside down cups. I think that's good.
Thank you for the suggestion. We had it on there before.
It would be off there.
Okay. Yeah.
That vibrated.
Let's see. Yeah.
What are they saying?
The polo shirt looks good. Just trying to hope to see it watch. Oh, he's good at this. He's totally humorous. Keep it away from me. I don't need it. I don't need live criticism on my moderation.
You don't need criticism in text because I can give you live criticism. Exactly. That's what you mean by that. Well, look, I think you don't need to text because you can give.
We didn't ask that. So. That's right. Hey, man, I'm a trained professional here. Well, I appreciate it because 9 times out of 10 you're going to be right. Those are the overturned ones. Yes. So you're good. Yeah. So yeah. Candidates, come on up.
All right. Okay, thank you.
You are right here.
Where are you?
I think I'm right here between you both.
Okay. Who do we
The rows between the grandmas. So you must be Nate.
Yes.
Nate and Leanne.
Nice to meet you.
And
Yeah?
Good to see you.
Here we are again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's not a fire hall this time.
no, you're fine. Okay, once everyone gets their water ready, we'll get started. Okay, I'll just remind all the candidates that first we'll ask you to introduce yourselves. You'll have 2 minutes to do that, and then I'll start asking questions, and you each have a minute to respond to those. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Good evening. Thanks for the chance to be here. My name is Steve Dillard. I'm running for District 5 Commissioner. In 2014, housing prices were high in this county, and finding economical workforce housing was a challenge. 8 years later, workforce housing is a big issue all over the county. And our incumbent commissioner has a plan for this to run for a third term. There were homeless people in this county 8 years ago. Now, homelessness is a huge issue in our county. If you think that the county's going the right direction, if you think the leadership is working and making progress on this problem, then you need to vote for a third term incumbent. I'm a person that believes in citizen representative, somebody who goes and serves the community, then comes back and lives under the laws that they helped create. If you want a career politician, somebody who can't even spell term limits, then you need to vote for a third term incumbent. People over in the Valley keep coming up with great ideas that they implement, and then they think they implement them, and then we pay the price for them here in our county. If they keep over-regulating our timber, our fishing, our healthcare, our schools, even our construction. Our existing commissioner has been meeting with people all over the state for years and years and years, but the regulations keep coming. And I submit that if you want more of this, then you need to vote for a third term incumbent. My name is Steve Dillard, and I'm here because I represent change. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Leanne Thompson. I'm that person he's talking about. I would tell you, Clatsop County government is a really interesting proposition. We're only one of 2 counties in Oregon where the commissioners are volunteers. That means that Clatsop County commissioners are either rich or retired or part-time. When I took office in 2015, I was the 5th commissioner from District 5 in 7 years. We had a churn in this district, which runs from the ocean to the Columbia County line, from the Tillamook County line, clear up to Fishhawk Lake. It's a big district. It's over half the size of the county. What it means is it takes a while to have the consistency, to have the impact, to make the difference. What I'm committed to is teamwork, building good relationships, community building, not making war on each other, not finding reasons to criticize or hate or be angry at each other, because we can all find that. What's the best in each person? How do we come together to bring the best? How do we build housing that doesn't generate resistance because it threatens the well-being of the people who already have houses? You can call it NIMBY when there's backlash, or you can say, wait a minute, we need to bring everybody to the table, get the right data, have the right relationships, and then find ways to work together that solve the problems that we all have so that we have strong, positive communities where everybody is seen and heard and respected. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan Pinkstaff. Sorry, my voice is a little loud. I am born and raised here, 3rd generation. I am not somebody that was destitute for political avenues at all. I got into this because I care about this community more than anything. I've raised 2 boys here, and now I have a 10-month-old baby girl, and I want to see change. I want people to be heard. I want to be somebody that is for everybody. party lines are not going to make changes nowadays. It's going to be everybody. And being able to be heard, that's something everybody wants. And I want to be that voice, somebody that can get along with everybody, work with everybody, and just be me, willing to listen. I'm not going to have all your answers, but I am the person that's going to go home, research it, and if I can't research it on my own, I'm going to reach out to the people that do know that. I'm just, first and foremost, I'm a resident in this community, and I take pride in this community, and that's what I want to bring to this county commission. So, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm short even when I'm sitting down. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I hope we're all not too tired to make it for the next hour or so. And thank you all for hanging in there with us. My name is Pam Webb. I'm from a Coast Guard Navy family. I have lived all over the United States and all over the world. I am a product of a commitment to public service, and I have spent my life in public service. I have worked at all levels of government, from the White House to City Hall. I have a master's degree in urban and regional planning and a very strong background in economic development. I have spent my life working as a consultant or as an employee in government, and I always say that I know good government when I see it, and I know bad government when I see it as well. It's, as Commissioner Thompson mentioned, we have a very unique form of government in Clatsop County. There are 5 commissioners. In most other states in Oregon, there are 3 commissioners, and they are full-time, and they make a pretty good living dividing up the responsibilities to administer. So I hope that tonight you can get to know me a little bit more and answer some of the specific questions that were being asked that will reflect a bit more about what our time on this very congenial, actually, county commission that exists right now. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Mark Kujala. I was born and raised here in Clatsop County. I went to Warrenton High School, graduated from Oregon State University. I outkicked the coverage, so to speak, and married a wonderful woman, much smarter and more talented than I am. And everybody that knows Alana knows that to be true. And I have 2 beautiful girls, Carly and Kaya. I grew up in a fishing family. My dad fished most of his entire life. He started a fishing business that provided for us growing up, and it provided for my family up until a few years ago. And, my brother's still a fisherman. He's the one that didn't get seasick when we'd go out fishing as kids. And, it taught me the value of fishing jobs and logging jobs here in Clatsop County. And sometimes you have to remind folks about how important those really are and what they really still mean to our community. I started going to public meetings back in the early 2000s, and I was researching and writing letters and testifying before the Planning Commission, the City Commission, and the former city manager, and who became the mayor, Gil Gramson at the time, kind of challenged me. He said, well, you should run for public office. And I said, oh, okay. So when 2004 came around, I decided to file for City Commission, and I was lucky enough to be elected and spent 12 years as a city commissioner in Warrenton. I was mayor for 5 years. I was appointed for part of that and elected for part of that. And then in 2018, I decided to run for the county commission. I'm so glad that I did. We got a great team. I just really enjoyed representing District 1. I love to listen. I love to find solutions, work for creative solutions, and develop partnerships. And it's just been it's been a great ride. It's been a crazy few years with the pandemic, but I'm proud of what we achieved, and I'm running for a second term because we still have unfinished business, and I want to see that through to completion. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Lianne, we're going to start the first question with you. What do you see as the county's role regarding the need for childcare, including providing facilities and trained personnel?
Thank you for that question. Child care is something that's been a long-term interest of mine, and what I did was hold on to the child care task force until Commissioner Kujala and Commissioner Bangs could step up to deal with it. So the county's role in child care and in other essential community services is to convene people, bring the right people to the table, get the right data presented, and then find ways to implement those data into solutions that work in the community. So we've got to have a business model that works, we have to have an educational model that works, we have to have an employment model that works. Most of all, we have to be taking care of the children and their families. So the county supports all that in our convening role.
Okay, thank you. Nathan.
I think when it comes to child care, I'm not trying to step on toes, but I think we overregulated it. I think we took away the parents' right to know what's best for their children. My grandma, love her, she ran a daycare for 30 years. And she did a wonderful job of it. She had, I don't know how many people came through this community, went through her. And the regulations weren't there that are there today. We have lost people like Coast Guard wives that just loved children and wanted to be able to babysit that can't do that anymore. So for me, I think we need to, what is in best interest of the children is to actually take care of them, but allow the parents to have that input, not be the county.
Okay, thank you. Pam.
Gosh, I have been very pleased that this commission has addressed the child care issue to the extent that we have. We're working very closely with several of our cities because it is a collegial approach that has to solve all of the problems. These intergovernmental partnerships, and including the private sector, are very, very important. You'll probably notice that yesterday the city of Astoria, last night I guess it was, approved the resurrection of their child care facility by a partnership with a private facility, and we're expecting that probably some of the some county money might be a part of that process as well. And that's the way I think we solve those problems. I don't think that regulation is a bad thing. I believe that we need to, if I have learned anything in my career, it is that there are a lot of people who have expertise in different areas that I don't have, and therefore I think that those regulations are often very good.
Thank you. Mark.
Could you read the question again?
Yeah. What do you see as the county's role regarding the need for child care, including providing facilities and trained personnel?
Okay, so yeah, as Commissioner Thompson was speaking about the child care task force, and she had led that for years, and I kind of took over that in the last year. We've convened several meetings with stakeholders trying to develop some solutions. We also received some ARPA funds, $450,000 of which we dedicated towards expanding child care in Clatsop County. Well, we are still looking for what the right mix of what we can do to expand capacity. As Commissioner Webb spoke to the Little Sprout situation, it's sustaining what child care we have is the first thing. Little Sprouts served at one time 45 kids. I think they were down to 23 most recently. And having Bumble come in and take over that daycare is so important. They're going to grow that to 60 kids by this fall. That's huge. And so growing existing daycares and helping them kind of meet the need within the community is going to be extremely important. We're going to meet in a half-day session with all of our stakeholders next month, and I'm hoping that we're going to get some really good solutions that come out of that.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Stephen.
the county role in the county is doing a lot of work with the commission, with the funds that they've got. I also think they need to, when possible, incentivize private child care.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, the next question is going to start off with you. What changes would you like to bring to Clatsop County?
First and foremost, I want accountability and transparency. I also want people to be heard. Since I started this, which everybody knows was at the last minute, I decided to run after talking with so many people, and being heard is something that's been lost in District 3, and I want to get back to letting everybody know that their voice is important. It doesn't matter if you're on the right side, left side. Like I said before, party lines are not going to fix the problems that we have here in Clatsop County. And I think at the county level, we need to get back to really listening to everybody in our districts.
Okay, thank you. Pam, what changes would you like to bring to Clatsop County?
Well, I'm not looking to change a lot. I live here because I choose to live here. I chose to spend the rest of my life on the coast of Oregon, and that's what I'm going to do. So I don't want to see a whole lot of change, but what I do want to see is more healthy government. And I want to see better collaboration among the units of government and special districts that we have on the North Coast. I want to see I want us to get over our pandemic, which incidentally I'm very proud of, as I hope our other commissioners are. We have one of the highest vaccination rates in the state of Oregon in Clatsop County, and I think that's because the board did a fine job of letting our public health department do their thing and do it well, and keep the keep the pandemic under control. What I would like to see more of is collaboration among the different cities and the county and our special districts.
Okay, thank you. Mark, what changes would you like to bring to
Well,
Clatsop
yeah,
County?
the change I want to see is be able to do 4 years without having a pandemic and public health dominating. I mean, that has been, a big focus for the last 2 years, and I agree that I think our public health department and everybody in our administration did a fantastic job. And we still managed to get things like the county jail and Westport docks done, and we developed a strategic plan, which was a huge achievement during a pandemic. But yeah, I want to spend 4 years actually working on that strategic plan and addressing some issues with regards to housing and childcare and broadband and of course, levees and tie gates, which is a big passion of mine. So, those are the things that I think, that's what I'm anxious for. The change I want to see is being able to focus on our priorities. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Stephen.
I keep following Nate and agreeing with most of what he said. Accountability and transparency are big. Also, he's mentioned District 3 voters are not feeling represented. As I travel around the county, I'm getting exactly the same feeling from everybody in District 5, all over the place. So I'd like more representation there, or more feedback, more connection from the commission to the voters of District 5. And I keep hearing over and over and over again about the overreach from the folks over in the valley. And so I would like to see in our county more pushback against Salem and some of their great ideas that keep hammering us.
Okay, thank you. Leanne.
Thank you. In the last few years at the County Board of Commissioners, we've developed very functional collaboration and teamwork. I want to see that permeate all over Clatsop County. I want to see us really effective at developing workforce housing, childcare, broadband, dealing with water issues. I'd like to see us heal from COVID earlier tonight, I grabbed this musician friend of mine and said, we need more community building. We need more art. We need to heal from this COVID. We've all been scared. We've all been isolated. We've all been concerned about things like inflation and how do we maintain a quality of life? How do we deal with those who are homeless and hurting? As a community, if we heal, if we form teams, if we collaborate, if we listen to each other with respect and affection, we can do that. That's what I want to see.
Thank you. Pam, we're going to go to you for the first response on this next question. How will you promote transparency of allocation of public funds?
Well, in Oregon, we have some of the best public participation laws in the country, and our meetings are completely open. They're always announced in advance. I don't quite understand this concern about listening, etc. I get sometimes up to 150 emails a day. I usually get anywhere from 2 to 10 phone calls a day, and I respond to all of them. So I'm not sure that I quite understand those concerns. I know that we are all very anxious to get back into in-person meetings. A board functions much, much better when we're in the same room and looking at each other and joking and asking each other about our kids. And so that's what I'm hoping for is more in-person, on-site communications.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. How will you promote transparency of allocation of public funds?
Yeah, I think that getting back to in-person meetings, having the hybrid option maintained so people can join us if they can't join us in person, I think will be important. We want to beef up the website, allow for more things to be accessible on the website. Communication is something that we have we have all agreed that we can do, we can make improvements in communication, and we're moving that direction.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Stephen, what about you, and how would you promote transparency?
The transparency that is already there can be supplemented by adding any requests for more information can be put on the website. The budget's on the website. You should be able to make requests, and if the certain information, the detailed information that you're looking for isn't available, staff should be able to provide it at some point. And any of this would be public information. It should be published.
Thank you. Lianne, what are your thoughts on transparency?
I think visibility is a big part of transparency, and electronic visibility is great, and you can watch us on those Zoom meetings. I've been asking for years to move the meetings of the County Board of Commissioners around the county, because I think life is a be there joke. We had some inclination to do that, and then COVID came. Let us move around. I've also begun a water roundtable, and what we've done is gather people from all kinds of interests, timber, brewing, environmental folk, watershed folk, bring them all together and look at those data so we can communicate relevant data on specific topics. I want to do the same thing for housing that we're doing for water, because if we share relevant information and if we come and visit people so that we see the reality they see, then we're all going to communicate more effectively. And that's the most transparency of all, is in that two-way, friendly conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Nathan, your views.
I believe getting more community input, letting them know what we're going to be using those funds for. They're the reasons those funds are there. And I think sometimes we get lost when you're put in charge of something that you think it's your vote and your words instead of the constituents. And really, when it comes to transparency, I like what they've said about the in-person meetings. I think that's very important. But what it also gets down to is going into your local restaurant, not just to eat, not to grab a drink, but to ask them, and talk with them and talk to the people that just live here. I've lived here my whole life, and I love this community, but I also love that we can be open and honest with each other. So when it comes to public funds, that's where I would like to see there's more community input.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mark, we're going to go to you for this next question. First, what projects would you promote to increase affordable housing?
Pass. Just kidding.
I was going to say, just you have 1 minute. Let's solve it.
Okay.
Solve it here tonight.
No, I think we're doing that. So we identified surplus properties throughout the county. We had 12 throughout the city limits, both in Astoria, Warrenton, and Seaside. I think by the county providing that buildable land to cities and nonprofits and developers that might be able to find some kind of way to build affordable housing, that's the first step. I know that we also need to bring the developers into the conversation, because a lot of times we talked amongst the cities or jurisdictions, and we haven't had the development community at the table. So I think it's going to be bringing all the stakeholders together, and hopefully this can be the first start.
Thanks. Stephen, what project would you promote?
I think the county did a great study. The 2019 study that they published has a lot of great information in that. One piece that I would add to that is when we talk about workforce housing is the commute distance. To add that into the equation, how close can we get people to their job and what kind of commute distance? So I think transit could be added in there as a factor, and what can we do to improve or supplement transit. One of the other things that I think we need to do is oversee or step back a little bit the regulations that are being implemented to, I was talking to a county employee that wanted to add a couple of duplexes onto his property, and the city of Astoria, with all the permits, with all the extra money, with all the engineering that had to go on, it was going to be too cost prohibitive to generate the kind of housing that he was hoping to do. So to step back and say, we need to look at this from a higher level and maybe coordinate to where we can escalate some of these or supplement some of these city regulations could help with the overall condition.
Okay, thank you. Lianne.
Okay, this is late breaking news. The last thing I did today before I came to this meeting was to have a conversation with the executive director of Orla, Jason Brandt. Jason, I know your restaurant workers, your hotel workers, they need housing. Will your organization collaborate with us so you'll help us? Yeah, he said, I think maybe we can get behind that. Great, I said. Would you like to know about Professor Shine and Ian McDonald from the Tallwood Design Institute? Because, wait for it, modular housing made with mass plywood panels. Do you know, I gave him the phone numbers. I called Ian. I said, Ian, look for this call. He said, wait, Jason Brandt is calling me right now. That's what I'm doing. So I've been talking about this since 2010. I'm just going to keep talking about it, but I tell you, I think we're getting to critical mass. I think it can happen.
Okay, thank you for that reenactment. Nathan, what project would you promote to increase affordable housing?
First off, I would start, like Steve said, there was a study, 2019. I think that's a little outdated. I think we need to get a new study going now, which would include COVID numbers in that. And also what Commissioner Cuela said about getting more people involved, the developers, the builders, really getting them in this and finding a way with the city, with the county to, yes, codes are important, but we need to not be overregulated and overcoded to where it makes it more difficult and more expensive to build here on the coast. So I think bringing all of them to the table along with a new study would really benefit.
Okay, thank you. Pam.
Yeah. I serve on the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, which is a 3-county jurisdiction that functions as the proponent and management, to a large extent, of affordable housing. And when I say that, I mean supported housing. housing that is supplemented with federal dollars and built specifically for certain populations. We are about to break ground on a 42-unit project in the city of Warrenton called Trillium House that we're very excited about. It's taken 2 years of incredibly hard work. I probably spend at least 10 hours a week on housing authority business of different kinds. We have 186 units in Clatsop County of supported housing. Those are in about 15 different properties, all the way from the Owens Adair Hospital, what used to be the hospital, in Astoria, which has 50 units for senior housing. And we've just completed a feasibility study that has recommended that we build another 50 units on that same property. I see I'm getting the red flag.
All right, thank you. So that's the last question, and so what I'd now like to do is to invite the candidates to make their final statement, and we'll start with you, Stephen. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I had been looking to serve my wife and I are at a place in our lives where we were looking to help out, and we've been looking to serve for quite a while now. It's about 6 months I'd been attending local meetings, mostly in the city of Seaside. Different kinds of meetings, work task forces, and getting to know the different issues that are going on at the local level. When I found out there was a chance to run for the county level, I changed lanes and decided to serve the Clatsop County, if so elected. And I have a long history of being a business person. I'm an outdoorsman. And I'm in love with this country, I'm in love with this county, and I'm looking forward to doing more to help out here. I am pro-law enforcement, I am pro-parental rights, and I've worked with a lot of different community organizations, from Rotary and Habitat for Humanity, the Continuum of Care, and lots of different local agencies, law enforcement, to work on community projects. And so I've had success in business, success in the community level, and after attending many, many, many community meetings on the homelessness issue in our area, my wife and I finally decided to get out and do something because we care about people, and so we put our own funds, our own times into creating a nonprofit organization to a transitional housing program to work with men in recovery. We ran that for several years, brought a lot of people together, and were able to make the difference in a lot of people's lives. So I've got a history in this area, and I'm looking forward to being able to serve the people of this county with my experience and my talents. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Lianne.
Thank you. Well, the Clatsop County Commissioners are by charter nonpartisan, and that means we have to work with everybody. We have to bring out the best in everybody. We put partisanship aside to make a team with each other and every single other person. Everybody's talents are welcome. Everybody's contribution is welcome, because it really will take all of us working together, again, with respect and affection, to use our best, to deal with our worst, to heal what needs to be healed. Because we're at a period of great change. We're at a period of great stress. If you've driven down the highway, you know there's a lot of stressed out people in the world. So how do we have grace with one another? How do we take the time to look for what's best in each person, what we can agree to, what we can build something positive and constructive? I play it right up the middle. I listen to everybody. I work hard. I go the extra mile. We're starting to see the fruits of the capacity building that we've done at the county. We're on track to really start blossoming and bearing fruit in these community concerns that are so important. I read a 10-year-old housing study. Back then, people thought that the problem was homeless people. Now we know it's something else. We know that building a strong economy and having childcare and broadband, having options in this county, but most of all, practicing being good neighbors with one another and looking for ways to build positive, constructive community. That's the answer, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan.
Again, I'm Nathan Pinkstaff, and I want to thank you guys for letting me be here. First and foremost, like I said, I'm a resident of this community, of this district. I love Astoria. I chose to stay here. Except for going to college, I came back, and it's a big part of who my family is, who I am. And I want anybody and encourage anybody that if you see me out there and you have questions for me, come up, talk to me. I'm easygoing. One thing I pride myself in is I have people on both sides, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. They both endorsed me. And for that, that's why I love this. It's a nonpartisan position, and it's going to bring everybody together. That's what's going to make the changes that we need in this community. It's not agendas. Some people have brought up the experience. You know, I don't find fault in lacking government experience. Experience comes from all walks, friendships, research, and what research I don't know, I'm going to look up. And by reaching out to people that do know. That's how we learn. That's how I'm going to learn this job. I appreciate every one of you, and I just hope that we can come together as a community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Pam.
Yeah, thank you for your patience with us tonight. You all have really been hanging in there. Thanks for hanging in for this long evening. I want to continue and wrap up some things that I've been working really hard on. One of them is the issue of affordable housing. I think all of the other commissioners have talked about some of that. I have acquired a great deal of knowledge in working with the Housing Authority. Turns out that there are two issues facing us. One of them is homelessness, and one of them is affordable housing, and they are two separate issues, and they have to be dealt with separately. Affordable housing is a very complicated process. Most supported housing that is developed has about 6 different funding streams that must come together and work effectively. I didn't learn that in 2 days. That's complicated stuff, and it has taken a long time, and I want to see a number of these projects through that I've put my heart and soul into for the last 3 years. The other exciting thing that's going to happen in the future that I want to work on is infrastructure money that's coming down from the federal government. One of the things we lack in this county most is significant infrastructure that can support the development of housing. When you build a house, you have to have a sewer line, and you have to have fresh water, you have to have electricity, etc. And so we want to capture some of this federal money by working collaboratively with the port and with the cities to make sure that we have the infrastructure to sustain the growth of our economy. Also, I think one of the biggest lessons for me is that a diverse economy is a healthy economy. And we right now have a diverse economy. We have farms and forests and fishing. And we need to sustain that diversity and once again put more infrastructure to support those activities. So I look very much forward to continuing on those projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, are you going to pass or are you going to go?
I'll go. Earlier this year, we met for the first time, I think it was in person, to review and update the strategic plan for the county. And, you know, we first had a survey went out that got some community input. The staff provided input, and then the commission over several meetings provided input. And, you know, in the areas of governance, infrastructure, economic development, social services, and the environment, we identified priorities, and all of us were in agreement on those priorities. Obviously, some of them are no-brainers, like housing, childcare, and broadband, and levees, and water infrastructure. But we have 65 projects actually in one form of, of completion or another. 65 that the county is currently working on, and it sometimes, you know, it escapes you that there's that much going on because you don't hear about it every day, but there is, and so I do appreciate the staff's, you know, kind of soldiering through what has been a very challenging time for everybody to get a lot accomplished. But since there's so much left to do, that's why I want to stay for a second term and complete everything that we can. That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Mark. Let's give all these candidates a round of applause. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for coming, and again, thank KMUN for their support of this event and live streaming it. I hope you all got a chance to interact with our Associated Student Government table that was out front that was promoting voter registration. If you didn't, if they're still out there, please go. I kind of hope they're not, but they're really dedicated and they really care about democracy. And it's been my honor to moderate this debate, this forum, to hear from folks who passionately care about our state, our country, and our county. It's always heartening. It's one of the reasons that I love living in this community and why I'm the president at the best community college. You can tell Ross I said that, in the state of Oregon. So again, thank you all for coming, and have a good night. Yeah, thank you. Good job, everybody. Here's your questions. Yep, and I need to give this back to Sarah because she likes it. Otherwise, she's going to kill me if I steal her pretty.